Happy Monday, you guys.
Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Say That channel. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the Monday Rundowns here on Say That channel. This is where Winston and I get to talk about all the things we don't normally talk about on our Wednesday shows. Wednesdays are earmarked for entrepreneurship and that type of journey. On Mondays, we get to talk about things like mental health and relationship issues and a whole bunch of other things. So, what we do is we content creators, other thought leaders who also have some thoughts on the topic, and then we learn and grow together. So, super excited to do that on another Monday with you, Winston, and everyone else.
Say that. Let's do it, guys. That's the topic of the day.
Why do we love people who hurt us? You know, this is a great question. Winston and I, for those of you who don't know, Winston and I are the co-founders of SayThat Publishing. And we were working with one of our clients and editing their work. And the client and I have something in common where we've been in relationships where we continue to be in relationships even though the guy was hurting us. And it was interesting because we were both kind of like thinking our way through it. Like, why did we let this happen? Because 10 years later, we're like, why were we even doing this? But when we sat and I think talked it out, I think ultimately it came down to having low confidence in ourselves. Internally, our self-confidence was low. And that's what ended up keeping us there. I know for me personally, the thought, even if I thought about bringing up like, well, why are they hurting me and why are they doing this? It was like, oh, well, I don't deserve anything better. I'm not going to be able to get someone who's going to treat me better than this. Like, I should be lucky that I'm getting this kind of attention. I know that was honestly playing in my mind, not every day, but in my darker moments, that was definitely what was coming across in my mind. So I think that's, for me personally, that is one of the reasons why I stayed. And I mean, here's the other thing: can you love someone and just not be in a relationship with them too? Like, I can love you from afar. I don't need to be in a relationship with you while you hurt me. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
So it's interesting. My actual thought on, or I guess answer, is because it's what love is. So I've in trying to understand, even just to hear your experience you had in our client describe what that is. In my mind, there's this thing in us that just wants to believe the best in people. I think I don't know if to call it, I don't want to say it's the human nature, but I do believe it's the nature of love. Love, and I mean, we can get biblical, but love loves. And so there are people who they do things, and the hurting us part is an interpretation. Obviously, I know that there are people who physically harm people, but I think we're talking a little bit maybe more about emotional, and it encompasses a lot of things. But in all of that, there is just what love is. Love loves, and through all of that, it's what it. I mean, it's just really what is. So I think, I guess for the way the question is phrased, why do we love people who hurt us? It's because that's not what love means, but love, I think, is what keeps us through things like that. You know what I mean? It's this innate feeling like they're good and I'm good. Like we shouldn't be treating each other the way we are. But I know there's something in, you know what I mean? I know there's something in this person that I am connected to. And if we want to get deep, I mean, it is what all of us are, reflections of God. So the thing that's innately within each of us is that God's force, and that at its core is love. So I think that's what continues. I mean, people, again, we find ourselves in situations and things happen to us that we don't want to happen to us. People do things that we don't want to have done to us, but the way we feel about them, I don't think it's something anyone should ever feel bad about, because that's what we ultimately want, is that love. Especially when we hear things like unconditional love. It's this idea that no matter what I do, somebody out there is going to just be like, come on over. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what I do, it's like, yeah, there's this thing out there that's just going to love you. And I think at its core, love is beautiful. It's, obviously, so it comes with a lot.
This is the most I've ever heard Winston wax poetic about love. I'd just like to take a moment and
Uh,
acknowledge what we just all witnessed and heard. That was
that's
beautiful.
hilarious.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please throw it in the comments what you guys think to this question. What are your thoughts on this as a whole? As the chime in the back signals the people at Janelle's home to enter the subway.
It's just chiming you to tell us exactly what you think. Do you also feel like what Winston said was really beautiful? Do you
Say
agree with
that.
that? Do you agree with what I said? Please let us know. And as you contemplate about that, let's go ahead and learn from some people who also have some thoughts on the subject. We're going to turn to our favorites. You know them. We love them. Let's go to the School of Life.
Say that.
Some of us appear to have an above-average talent for finding ourselves in unfulfilling relationships. Our unions might begin with a lot of hope, but in time, problems set in. A lack of affection, an absence of intimacy, an emotional chill, affairs. When these issues rear their heads, most of us would know to think that however lovely the start might have been, it's time to leave, and fairly fast. Someone who's messed us around as the partner has, or been as cold or as sadistic, does not deserve a second or indeed any chance. But for others among us, this is when we begin to show our distinctive colours. Hope springs eternal. Yes, the partner may presently be somewhat disappointing, but soon they may recover. Admittedly, they have become hugely unkind in many ways, but they did apologise nicely last week before repeating their offence, and so there is a decent chance, we believe, that things will be on an upswing over the longer term. To outside observers, the faith that we have in our partner can appear quasi-religious. Why do we keep giving our unreliable companion so much leeway? Why do we hope against hope? Why don't we cut our losses right now and leave? Why are we so convinced that with just a little more effort on our part, one more discussion, one more long email sent in the early hours, everything will alter? Furthermore, perhaps why do we keep assuming that we have done something wrong and that it's primarily our role to apologize and make amends? The explanation is that we grew into hopeful people not by choice, but of necessity. We almost certainly spent our childhoods in circumstances where we had no option but to become enormous believers in our parents, and simultaneously enormous doubters of ourselves. When little, we couldn't afford to think that our parents were simply disappointing, wounded people with whom we shouldn't interact too much and then walk away. We were 4 years old. So we did what children of unfulfilling parents always do. We started to think ill of ourselves. We developed a genius for wondering what was wrong with us and for assembling complicated and overly generous explanations for the bad behavior of others. We evolved an expectant stance towards whatever morsel of love our parent might throw our way. We became excited by deprivation. All day they might have been ill-tempered and cruel to us. Perhaps at nightfall they might say something sweet and ruffle our hair. This became the most exciting and appalling game of our lives. As adults, we continue to be addicted to this tension. It's come to seem that this is what love is, the pain-tinged, continuous expectation that an unfulfilling person might abruptly turn round and be nice to us again. Love is waiting for someone who was once slightly kind to resume their interest. It doesn't strike us that love might actually be something quite different, simpler and less tortured. An ongoing, reliable exchange of mutually respectful sympathy and gentleness. And if it's not this, that we should leave at once. Indeed, if we have the troubled fortune to meet a reliable soul, we will probably respond to them with a feeling of nausea and bewilderment and flee in short order. Perhaps back to the last unfulfilling partner. The toll we pay in terms of wasted years is lamentable. Whereas others among us can enjoy calm, kindly relationships, we will get locked into exhausting scenarios with perturbed individuals who very subtly mess us around, who say one thing and do another, who don't give us physical affection or blow hot and cold, who may be having affairs and keep promising to change and don't. And the worst is that for all our suffering, this somehow excites us. This keeps us on our toes. This feels like what we need to keep doing. We know nothing else. We have to start to believe what our childhoods never allowed us to think. Some people need to be given up on. Certain seemingly ordinary and good people are in fact very damaged and will hurt and bully those around them. Some people with a few lovely qualities to them will, considered in the round, work an entirely negative effect on our lives. It's not our role to keep second-guessing unfulfilling people, to spin elaborate stories as to why they may be doing what they do. We don't need to think more about their psychology than they care to. We need to look very closely at what they do, not why they might be as they are. And conversely, despite our nausea, we don't need to keep holding it against certain others that they are kind. There is nothing wrong with them for being sweet. There is something very sad about our past, that we are so easily sickened by their manner. If this sounds like us, we urgently need to tell ourselves that the person who's maltreated us or is maltreating us will never change. Our boundless hope that they might is not rooted in any reality. It's the legacy of a childhood which obliged us to keep faith with people who no free person should ever have had to keep faith with. There is one and only one criterion that determines whether we should be with someone, whether or not they are kind to us. If they were but are no longer, we need to leave. If they are only a small percentage of the time, we need to leave. If they show a promise of kindness but no delivery, we need to leave. We need to break our addiction to a suffering that we were not owed then and definitely don't deserve now.
I don't know. The School of Life sounds pretty jaded.
After you giving your definition, yeah.
I know, like leading into that, I was like, my goodness, I mean, it obviously makes very valid points. I feel like I wanted it to be more specific of some of these examples. Because how long do you wait to see if someone's more going to be more kind, or what is telling you to do in terms of leaving? Is that the first offense, the sixth offense, the like at what
I see
point
what you're saying. Yeah,
are you making that judgment statement to say this is the the last? Obviously, some of the infidelity examples they gave, like things like that, by that standard. You know what? And I'm actually a big proponent if relationships aren't working, people should find their joy, whatever that looks like. So I'm not opposed to people who people not being together or breaking up. But some of what they use as examples, my only question would be just that: at what point are you asking that question to say, I'm not gonna let them try, to be kind tomorrow? Today is the last day. They didn't say whatever. I'm gonna
I will say everybody has their own
breaking thing.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has their own breaking point. You'll talk to one person and they'll complain, but they haven't reached their breaking point at all. And then there are some that are quite close, haven't reached it yet, but they're close, right? And then and then it gets to a point where someone's like, I'm done. The end. A lot of times the other person doesn't know. A lot of times, and this comes from Alison Armstrong and listening to a lot of her. For those of you who don't know, Alison Armstrong is a relationship expert, and she has identified that in all the 30 years of her research, oftentimes one partner has made the decision that this is over long before the other one has. And so because they've made the decision, they've also mourned the relationship. And so by the time the other person figures it out, it feels very like, what's
abrupt
happening?
and sudden.
It feels right, but the other person has mourned it for quite some time and is ready to move on. It's so fascinating.
Do you know what's so interesting about that? I remember there's a one of particular relationship, what you just explained, but not knowing the language, I guess, to describe what you just said. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying that to the person and saying, how could you be still so invested? Because I remember thinking, I've been done with this for so long. And I remember saying that, but thinking that wasn't a mutual understanding that was shared, which is why things were the way they were. Because in my mind, it's like, if things weren't, it's the idea of like, if things aren't this bad, then why are things this bad? Like if things are so great, how can how can one of us, and I could only speak for my own field. It's like, if things are so great, how can one of us feel so bad about things? Because like, who do you experience when you're having these good times in this relationship? Because I don't feel like I'm that person. Does that make sense? So who can this person be spending their time with? It meaning the version of me that they're still, whether it's so in love with or still so care, because it's like I don't feel those things. So how am I showing up that's letting you think you're having that experience?
And I think that's something that we do. Allison doesn't explain that. She doesn't explain why we continue to stay in the relationship while we're, because she only describes the phenomenon. One person will make the decision that it's over and they'll mourn the relationship ending while they're still in the relationship. Why don't we just end it and then mourn the ending of the relationship while not being with the person? I don't know. She didn't go into that. But there's something that we do, because I've also been in relationships where I've decided this is over and I've mourned the whole thing. And then I'm like, it's over. And the person's like, what? And I can only tell you that, like, now that you ask that question, it's not about like, well, who are you experiencing? This was really bad. Like, what are you doing? For me, I recognize that I could have ended this a while ago, but I didn't for whatever reason. And during that period where I didn't end it, I was mourning the end of the relationship. So I don't know. She doesn't have an answer to that. I just know she made an observation, but did not give an answer to
No, no,
why.
no. Again, the language is helpful to recognize, because I'm pretty sure a ton of people could relate. But oh, I have done that too. In that, I would be interested to know, to your point, those months that one party is aware, what that experience is like for others. Because in some, I think people often, well, not often say, you do hear people say, oh, it was mutual. But I think in most instances, it probably isn't that. That's not the case, and one person was already out, the way she's describing.
I've experienced a very grown-up adult breakup, and it was very different from others. And to me, it's a holding out thing. I can only speak for myself. When I haven't broken up and I've been mourning while still in the relationship, I think it's like just a holding out, a fear of letting go, a fear of like the finality of it all. There's probably just stuff that I'm like holding on to for no reason. Well, this has been great. So look, guys, if you want to talk to us more about this, please tell us, have you ever done any of these things? Do you feel like you can relate? Let us know. We want to hear it.
Drop it in the chat below.
Yes. And in the meantime, we will see you next week. Till then, as always, remember that you deserve good life.
The good life. Say that. Be good, you guys. Have a great week.